back for our Real Talk sesh. How are you, my love?
I'm pretty good. How are you going?
Well, I'm actually proud of myself because, as you know, I was out last night and I do not have a husky
I know.
voice today.
Well, I'm so proud. So out 2 nights in a
Oh,
row,
and
might
out
I
again
add.
and out again tonight too.
Oh,
What has
you
become of me?
social butterfly. Look out.
It's so bizarre. Like, and it's one of those ones where, like, we don't, I don't go out often, but when it happens, it's like, it's amazing how certain things just land on the same week or weekend or whatever. Does that happen with you as well?
Yeah, and it totally stresses me out.
Oh,
But sometimes, I know the things that you have had on you wouldn't have wanted to say no to.
that's the
So you
thing.
just have to fully commit
Yeah.
and not feel guilty about it and have some fun, which it looks like you
Yes.
did.
Yes, I speaking about the guilt, it's so funny because knowing that there are a few social engagements coming up, all I kept thinking about is like, how am I going to deal with a hangover? Am I going to be okay with a hangover? Maybe I shouldn't go out. Should I make sure
Yeah.
I'm home by this time because then I've got something else on and the kids and
Oh,
this and
maybe I'll just drink in moderation.
yeah. It's always a good idea before in theory.
Easier said than done. Easier said than done. We all
But
know that.
but I was actually quite proud of myself. I feel like the last 2 nights I've kind of kept the semi lid on it, and I think you kind of because you know that you're not gonna wake up to a day where you can laze around in bed, right? Like you
Yeah.
know what's coming. But one thing that kind of kills me, and I think I've spoken to you about this a little bit in the past, but I'm seriously considering this now, is this whole. Obviously, I'm quite fortunate that we do have babysitters, and I know even for yourself, Liv, it's been a little bit more of a challenge on that front. So I take that as an absolute privilege that at least I've got a few people that I can trust to look after my children of an evening. But the amount of money you spend on babysitters, can I tell you? Like particularly if
It's
you've
an
got a
extra
few
night
outings,
out, I'm
it
sure.
it actually is. And then part of me goes, we're looking for a place to buy. There's not much on the market at the moment, so we're still, not urgently looking, but hopefully in the next 6 months or so we'll be able to find something. If the setup is appropriate, I'm thinking au pair could be the jam because, like, how good would an au pair be?
I have long wanted this. This has been in my top 3 things that I need. Like,
Yes.
best advice for a parent, but I just don't have the space where we
Oh,
are. So I
oh,
just
gee-
don't. But I know some families who do have it.
Yeah.
And it has been an absolute godsend for
Yeah.
them. And they've almost become additional family members and lifelong, they stay in touch after they go home.
Yes.
Or move to another family. And
Yes.
it's just, a really beautiful thing to do. Plus great care.
Yes, and there are the pros and cons. A number of, and we are talking schools today, and a number of the parents at my at Noah's school have had au pairs or do have au pairs, and we've sort of had a big conversation around what's worked, what hasn't, and a lot of people have said the thing that was a little bit annoying is the setup needs to be great in your house because there's another person that's hanging around all the time, and I've had some parents go, I couldn't fully relax because there was someone else in my house. My thoughts are I might see if I can get someone from Greece, knowing that I'm half Greek, if I could get someone from Greece who's like, eager to come to Oz anyway for like 6 months, have them stay with us and have an au pair arrangement and have them only speak Greek to our children.
If you can land this, I'll be like, standard Leonie. Look at her go.
Just another tick, there we go, made it happen. No, but that's dream goals, but it will all be house dependent. I do feel like we should do an episode on like au pairs, babysitters, because I feel like, I don't know if it comes up for you much, but a lot of
find
people.
it so overwhelming. And I
Yes.
do. It is a topic of conversation a lot.
Yeah.
Around, how have you found your babysitters? I don't know if I was mentioning this to you. I was talking to one of Mum's friends. She's like, do you know what I used to do? I used to just go to the local coffee shop with my kids and I would see which waitress engaged the best with the children and then asked her if she wanted to be my babysitter.
Stop.
And I was like, what? Isn't that such a I felt that was a
Yes.
generational thing too, right? Like,
Yes.
just find someone off the street that will look after my kids. Whereas now we're like, can you please show me you're working with children?
Yeah.
Check. And we'd like to organise a meeting before you come over to our house. Like,
Yes.
it's just...
It's a different ball game,
It's a
isn't
different
it?
world. It's a different world, and it is a different ball game. And
Yes.
it is. Yeah, I mean, I know so many families and so many of my friends. We don't go out, or we just go to each other's houses
Yeah.
because we are really fearful about leaving somebody or just haven't found someone that we trust that we
Yeah.
want to leave our kids with.
Yeah,
Or
it's a big
don't have the
call.
money to be, doing
Yeah.
all that often. So
Not
it's a
not
hard thing.
it is a hard thing balancing like your own needs, as a couple, as for yourself, and versus the expense, the complication in trying to find someone that you trust, etc. But anyway, food for thought. Maybe we
Yeah,
can
let's
discuss
talk.
this at a
Let's
later
talk.
date as
Let's
things
talk. Let's
progress on my
brainstorm.
end.
If anyone's got any suggestions about what they do to find a
Yes.
good babysitter, let us know.
Yeah, we should throw that out to the community, I think, before we even hash out the topic.
I'd
Good
love to know
ideas.
if the coffee shop is actually a real thing these days too.
Hit us up on our DMs if it is, guys. We want to know more about this. This is very intriguing stuff. So I was talking about schools just then. So, okay, is this a big thing for you at the moment? Because I feel like a lot of people are talking about, our little ones are in 4-year-old kinder or ELC, talking schools. Is it a thing for you, Liv?
Is this a thing or is this a thing? I feel like it's all consuming me at the moment. When you just know you're living and breathing it. I'm talking about it all the time. Anytime I catch up with anyone, I'm like, schools.
Yes.
How did you? So yes, we need to talk about it today because I just need some therapy on my thinking, and I'm interested in kind of where your head is at on the choices that you've made and the choices that you will make. And I'll tell you a little bit about my experiences of school tours.
Oh, can we start there?
So let's start there.
Yeah.
So, good scene setting. So, obviously our boys are 4-year-old kinder, so preppies next year. And Tommy goes to a local kinder that I chose as a feeder to the primary school that was my preferred primary school. Now, when I looked more closely at my preferred primary school, I found that I was 250 metres outside the zone. So we're in Victoria. I'm not sure what it's like in other states, but in Victoria where we are, you have a Find My School Zone website that the government set based on where you live. So I'm zoned to a school that I was like, no chance is my boys going there. So that's been a real thing. I've been calling the school and saying, hello, Olivia Holmes here, parent committee, what do you need? Like, I need to go to that goddamn school.
Yeah.
But that aside, we're trying to now look at what our options are. I'm still very hopeful that we will get into that primary school that's just out of the zone.
Yeah.
But wanting to do some due diligence and making sure if we don't get in, I should look at, 2 or 3 other schools in our local area. So, Mark and I have had a lot of conversations around private versus state versus independent Catholic schools. I mean, there are so many options out there for parents based on your circumstance, your values, your belief in education and curriculum and all of these other questions that I have been polling every other family who has primary school or older children. What do I need to know? Because I just felt completely blind with these school tours booked in. So I've been on a couple now. And I am that annoying parent that is peppering the principal with all sorts of questions. So,
Where did you start with your question? How do you even start with your list? Like, where did you start?
So there's so many things. Like, so first of all, a principal in my mind is a bit like a CEO. They set the tone of the school, the culture that they want to lead. So I was really kind of interested in knowing how long had they been there and, what schools had they worked at previously and what do they love about this school and the community and the school community and how is this school different to other schools and what are you most proud of? So those like very HR. They've had a HR interview from me. Sorry.
What do you eat for breakfast? What's your favourite colour?
Like, I know everything about these principles. But then it's like so much other stuff. It's like, do they do languages? So many schools are now doing Auslan rather than, Chinese or Italian or Japanese. Like we did as kids. Many of the schools are choosing one, which is Auslan, sign language. And I said, well, why is this? And they said, well, in primary school, particularly if it's a state school and all of our kids go to 25 high schools after they finish with us, some go and do Italian, some go and do Chinese, some go do French. We just think what is more universally applicable for kids is Auslan, and I've heard that a few times now, which I found super interesting.
Yeah.
Then it's like extracurricular stuff. Like, do they have is your kid sporty? Is your kid more into art? Is your kid a creative kid? Is your kid an academic kid? So for me, the boys they're sporty kids. They're typical boys with so much energy. So something that I'm really preferencing now is space. So footy ovals and a really cool basketball court and a gym and having that space for them to explore and be kids and have adventure in a school environment, which is something that Tommy has absolutely loved about Kinder. It's a really nature-focused, environmental, sustainable curriculum focused at his little Kinder. So so that is the school which I'm not zoned. So the one that I was like, is now almost coming up because the school that I've had my heart set on is all just asphalt. There's very little green space. It's got a really wonderful academic record. As far as you can tell for kids, right? Seriously.
Yeah, I know.
Having said that, my auntie is a teacher and her best advice to me has been invest in early education. It is so critical to set them up for success. So you absolutely need to be taking into account curriculum. Do they have composite classes or is it just straight classes? Prep grade 1, grade 2.
Yeah.
So the various schools that I'm looking at have different setups. This is overwhelming too. Like, what is the right? What is the wrong? I don't think there is a right and there is a wrong, but it is what I keep saying and seems to be the theme of a lot of these conversations is it's just got to be what's best for your child.
Have you been to one school tour, for example, and gone, wow, I'm actually quite blown away, and it's a school that I perhaps didn't consider previously?
Yeah, it's the one that I've been like, nah, I'm just not into this. The one that we're zoned to.
Okay.
So the thing that I love is that they have a deaf facility. And I think what that is providing to the culture of the school is a really inclusive space. So there are children in this school who have learning difficulties, who are coming from a lower starting point than others, and they are as included in their class. Each of the teachers had microphones around them projecting their voice so the children who had hearing issues were able to I just thought it was beautiful. And the principal commented that to one of my other questions around bullying and behaviour, she said learn this inclusive environment of our school, and that starting from such a young age has eradicated any behaviour. Of course, there are some issues, but bullying is not a problem in our school because there are so many different kids with different challenges that it's just created a really beautiful space. And it was so obvious in the school. You could just tell it had such a warm, open, inclusive. The space was really adaptable for each of these children's different needs.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow. So
Food for thought.
Very, very interesting. I mean, extracurricular stuff, I started talking about that too. Fascinating. There's chess club, there's dance club, there's music, there's sports, there's... So each school has their own flair, I'm kind of finding.
Yeah.
A big one for us too, before and after school care. OSH, I think they call it now, whatever that stands for, before and after school care. So you probably know more about that than I do. One of my sister-in-law was really recommending to talk about homework philosophy. So a lot of schools approach homework differently, and for her, she was really encouraging me to ask that because there is not a lot of homework at her son's primary school, and he's in the later years of primary school, and she's worried about his perhaps not learning or his preparedness for high school. She's worried about that. She feels that you need to start, and I tend to agree, need to start getting into that habit. Not in prep, of course, but, grade 4, grade 5, grade 6.
Yeah.
One of the primary schools said, we don't do homework. Homework is not our thing. Learning is between 9 and 3, and that's what we do. We see there's no real reason for it. Whereas others said, we do it, we'll prescribe it, but there's not going to be a cross against the child's name if they don't return it.
Okay.
It's parent-led. So I was kind of cool with that. I think that's a choose your own adventure type.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's an interesting one to like this stuff I'd never considered.
Oh,
Like,
I never would have
literally
thought about it.
Pre this school tour was just like, I don't know. Like, I think I would have asked like things that were relevant to me.
Yeah.
I loved band when I was in primary school. That would have been the only thing I probably asked. Whereas, I've come away with a much greater appreciation for each of these primary schools. And, whether they're public, state, independent, whatever the makeup, they all so different.
Tell me, did you notice a difference between the public systems versus if you went to did you go to a Catholic school by any chance? Or
I haven't.
I was wondering, if it's probably school dependent though again, because there's so many fantastic state schools. There are some great Catholic schools, and I think and obviously there's the private school system too. So it sounds like it's
I think the interesting thing is right at the end of the day, the curriculum is the same. The government sets the curriculum.
Yeah.
So it's how they apply that learning.
Right.
One of the things that I found really interesting was composite classes. So my primary school, isn't it funny you take everything back to your primary school?
Yeah.
I was never in a composite class. We do
Okay.
have composite classes, but I was never in them. I think if someone had asked me what's my view on composite classes, I would have been like, I'm not into them.
Yep.
But I started to, I found it very interesting in terms of how they structure the composite classes. So making sure it's very much based on the learning needs. It's not just an alphabetical or a random selection of kids into a 1-2.
Okay.
If you've got a 1 in a 1-2, it's likely that your 1 is learning ability is probably higher, so that they can pick and choose things off the 2 curriculum as an example.
Yes.
So you don't have a huge disparity in learning ability in a 1-2. You don't have a 1 still learning 1 + 1.
Yes.
With a 2 who's learning, they're learning the same things.
Right.
I just couldn't understand. I just was like, I don't get this composite thing. Like, how can you have a grade 1 learning 1 + 1 and a grade 2 doing 3 × 3?
Sitting next to them, in the same class. Yeah.
So that gave me a lot more comfort, and I like that there could be opportunity for children. And I know parents who do, again, my sister-in-law, their school is all composite classes other than prep. I'm hearing a lot of schools just do straight prep. All the preppies are together, and we would understand why you would do that.
Yes.
But then from 1 on, probably 3 or 4, 3 out of the 4 schools that I have spoken to, not necessarily toured, but spoken to, have composite classes.
Wow.
Crazy.
It's crazy. So I guess on the flip side, because I even said this before we hit record, like for me, I haven't gone through this. That's why I find it absolutely fascinating. For me, it was at birth, pop the kid. So for those not living in Melbourne, and the Melbourne private school system is quite competitive to get them
You had
into.
planned where your kids were going to the school, I'm sorry, before they were popped out, mate. You planned this when we were 16.
So basically, like I popped these kids out of my belly, and then I went, okay, cool. The school forms, you have to sign them up really early. Particularly, there's a couple of, very well-known schools here in Melbourne, and they are very competitive to get into. And anyway, so I did that just to give us options, right? And funnily enough, of the 4 schools that we had put down, we put down from prep because we were like, we'll just see. Like, if we need to push it out, we'll push it out. There's 2 schools we still haven't even heard from. So it just goes to show that we're still not in per se, and that there's that much of a pool of people that they can reach out to. So, and then funnily enough, we ended up going with the school that we didn't put down at birth, but we did put down, I think, when Noah was 1 or 2, and it's around the corner from our place, and it's a private school. So they've actually got an early learning facilities for the age 3 and 4. So we thought we'll try that and we'll sort of see how that goes. It turns out now Noah's in the 4-year-old ELC. He loves it. We're in a situation where we're thinking, okay, we may just continue him in that school. Obviously, there's a level of sacrifice required in order to be able to do that. But our values feel like, that could be good for him as a child, etc. So we've sort of gone, cool, he'll just like kick on. So I haven't really, I know so many
Maybe you
people are
should go and
talking
ask
about
their
it.
homework philosophy.
Actually, like now
All of
you're
a sudden
making me
you're gonna come
think.
and be like, so yeah, he will be here, but I just feel like I need to ask these questions.
I have like, and then I like
Luke's gonna
roll.
ask me.
I roll out, the freaking 100 questions. They fall to the floor. I'm like, okay, question 1.
Do you know one of the things that I know that's very different between private and state is class size?
Right,
I think
okay.
typically class size is smaller, and we know the investment that parents make to send their child to private school is for the support, the smaller sizes.
Yeah.
Close, extracurricular stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot more investment, I think, probably in them.
Yeah.
Whereas I think in state they're slightly bigger.
What are they generally? Did you ask? Did you ask one of your questions?
20 to 25 was
pretty good.
Which I thought was pretty good.
That's very good.
So maybe you can report back. I mean, maybe I made a bit of an assumption, but that is something that I have typically understood to be true between the difference between the two.
Yeah, okay.
So, and, 4 or 5 preppy classes in a lot of these schools. So,
wow.
how
Okay,
many
big.
preppies? So, how many in class? And then how many preppies? So, one was 60, one was 100. And I was like, 100 preppies.
100.
Oh,
wow.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Huge.
Has your opinion been swayed by friends sending or considering a certain school? How's that gone?
Completely.
Yeah.
That's probably the other reason I had my heart set on this other school, because as I started, I chose the kinder as the feeder to the school that we're not zoned to, because a lot of his friends have gone from daycare to that kinder, and they will go to primary school, and they are very, very close little buddies. That has definitely had an influence. But I think we're finding that, as we're all touring, we're all making decisions for ourselves now. Yeah. What we perhaps had thought over the last couple of years of, we'll see you at primary school. Yeah. We probably won't. I already know that, 2 who thought that they would go there are going to go somewhere else.
Okay.
So, I mean, I was talking to a mum about this last night, and she said, well, ultimately, I mean, they are all beautiful friends, and it's so nice that they have formed friendships so young, but they're going to have to make new friends, and they can't be together forever, and they can see each other at Auskick, right?
That's right.
Welcome to the world.
Real world.
Where, even if they're in the same school, they might not necessarily be in the same class.
That's
and
right.
by protecting them and trying to just keep them in the safety of their good little friends isn't necessarily the best thing for them. So,
no.
And it's got to be about location of where you live. So one of the things we're thinking about is moving, right? So if, where we are now, and I send him up the road, 200 metres, and then we move 5K down the road, so Mark and I were saying, well, maybe we need to move this year, right? And so he starts primary school at a different year. I don't feel nearly as ready to do that, but it might force our hand a little bit to either go now or stay for another 3, 4, 5 years, but then Harry's due, so oh my god, it's just, that's why it's just super, super overwhelming in terms of what's the right thing. I don't want to start him at a school in a suburb that I think I might move to in the next 2 to 3 years, because maybe Harry will go to a different school, but I don't want that either. So
that's such a big
God,
one. Location.
Location is so important. It really is. You don't want to be driving 10K the other way away from the train station or your office or wherever you need to go.
And Melbourne traffic, forget it. And that's one thing for us, because the school is literally we don't even have to hit any traffic lights to get there. It's like 3-minute drive. It's a 5-10 minute walk.
Exactly.
Happy days. Even better.
How bad is school traffic? Oh my goodness. I have to drive past the school to get to kinder.
Yeah.
There's 2 schools. And I'm willing to drive 5 minutes out of my way to just miss the traffic jam and cars not able to move through the street.
Yes. And then the other, so we're sitting Well, relatively pretty with our school around the corner. I mean, we're looking to move too, so it won't.
Yeah.
No, it will no longer be around the corner.
Yeah.
However, we've kind of made that commitment that for
Yeah.
now he will stay at that school. However, this school for high school, they all board. So I don't want my child to go to boarding school. So I'm looking at the other options in the area that we still haven't gotten into. And how crazy is this for certain private schools? You actually have to, unless you get accepted at prep from year three, the next intake for most schools is year three, year five, and then year seven. For each of those intakes, you need to sit an exam. I was speaking, like a grade 3 has to sit an entrance exam. I was speaking to my friend at tennis the other day. Yeah. And her daughter's at one of the private girls' schools, and she was saying that the year sixes who wanted to get entry into the high school that they wanted to go, they had there was one summer they just spent locked indoors with a tutor, just literally studying their asses off to get over the exam.
That if they didn't pass this exam, or they were like me and not the brightest academically, but very good at other things.
Yeah. Well,
they might not get in.
There are sports scholarships and there are music scholarships.
Okay, I might have been okay, but
I'm like, come on, Noah, sports scholarship,
is there a
baby.
focus on academics? Is
So,
that what
so
they're
at
saying?
all of the schools, prominent schools that we know in Melbourne, like the Scotches, the Melbournes,
But for
you have to
primary
write.
school-
Yes, you have to write an entrance exam to get in, and you have to have a meeting with the dean, and it's like an interview process. So you get in, you're ready to pay the money that it costs to go to these schools, and they are still vetting you. And so most of these kids that studied all summer got into the Scotches, the Melbournes, the Trinities, whatever it looks like. But that's because they studied their ass off. It's almost like going for a scholarship is kind of what she was saying. However, it's just an entrance exam that they can vet
I've
you.
never heard of this.
Yeah, it's a thing, right?
God.
So,
You heard it
times are
first on
changing. I'm just warning everyone. So I'm like, okay, well, Noah's not in at one of those schools in prep.
So,
So,
if you're just a middle of the run kind of B student, will
Yeah.
you get in?
I've got no idea. But I wonder as well, this is all chit chatter on the streets. I'm like, maybe it's
Okay.
not as hectic as what people are mentioning it to be. But there is. That is the requirement that you have to sit an exam and you have to sit an
I
interview.
can imagine them doing an exam to know where you're at, so
Yeah.
that they can
Yeah.
work out what support you might need.
No, it's whether they work out whether you're going to stuff up their VCE averages. So I've got a question for you then. Have you, okay, so primary school's one beast, but have you started thinking high schools and how has that kind of gone?
So I live in the northeast of Melbourne, and there are not many options, I would say. So we are zoned to a very, very good public high school. So that is an option for us. As I said, I'm also thinking about moving. That would probably be a little bit about schooling. But I don't know. I always thought that I'd have daughters and they would go to the school that I went to, right? I didn't. I got boys. And the one kind of boy option school, I mean, Lee, we knew a lot of boys that went to that school, and I just don't know if I want to send my boys there. So, no offense, boys. Hope not. No, some of you might be listening. Yeah.
Or their wives. It's like, you know who you are.
The wives are definitely like, oh, yeah, I know. So, yeah, we are definitely thinking about it. We are definitely trying to save our pennies. It has been a goal of mine for a very long time to provide an education to my kids like I received, if we can. But as you said before, it's an absolute sacrifice. It is not a small amount of money. So it requires a lot of careful planning to be able to do that for sure. So I am definitely thinking about high school in the sense of where they go to primary school as a potential feeder again, like I did with kinder.
Yeah.
As where are their buddies likely to go? And currently, along the current path that we're going, he could go to either of the two schools.
Yeah.
Either the public or the state. I'm confident that there are plenty of kids going to both.
Yeah.
But if not, he can make new friends. Because we
Well-
started this year, Tommy saying, I don't need new friends. I've got my 3 besties and I'm not going to make any other friends. But thankfully, he's learnt that, new friends are cool. So
Yeah. And it's funny because I feel as though I've almost gone through to some extent what you're going through last year with Noah. So Noah started at the school in the preschool area and he knew no one. So he just had to, off you go, mate. And
You'll survive. You'll be
initially
right.
there was a bit of the anxiety around "don't leave me," and he'd come from a daycare center where he knew everyone, right?
Yeah.
So, now he's thriving. So, I mean, they'll get
They
there.
adapt so quickly, and it is one of the best life skills to learn as
Yes.
quickly as possible in new workplaces, in society, in meetings, in business, in community groups. Like, you have to be able to, be open and adjusted correctly to, want to be curious and meet people.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm.
Any final words of advice to those looking into this at the moment, Liv?
Before you buy a house, if you have a young baby and you're thinking about buying a house, look into school zones. They can change slightly year on year,
Yeah.
but you really do have to go into knowing where you are buying a house. I think I made some assumptions when we bought our house that I'd be fine. I've learnt that I was wrong. So that would be number one tip. Otherwise, I've alluded to this a little bit around my thinking, but finding the right school for your kids, being less focused on what everyone else is doing and thinking about what's the right decision for your child, their interests, and what they need to excel.
Yeah, love
That was
that.
so wise.
Good wrap. Oh, I love that. I feel like we'll leave it there. Okay.
See you
I'll catch you
guys.
next time.
Bye.
Bye.